I really, yeah, I really don't know what to do really about this infection. I have got something living inside of my neck and in my head, the membranes around the head. It's a sort of meningeal, like meningitis, but a chronic long-term meningitis. It's something that's been in my neck and in my lungs and in around the meninges, around the head for 3 years, and has progressed over the last year or so. A year and a few months ago, it became pleuristic, so it became in the lower part of the body. It's always been around the neck and the back of the head. And the pains around the neck and the head, when they get the inflammation, has gotten bad over the last year. And my abilities to do things have gotten less. But often I feel my head really hurts on both sides, but especially at the back and the whole of the neck. Every day I get a daily inflammation. I have them for years, but the inflammation episodes get worse. When it happens, it's like the whole skin is stretched thin and like something in there swelling out, and it becomes taut and really stretched, and it hurts on both sides of the head, but at the back more. It hurts to move it. All I do when the inflammation episodes happen is I try to lean against something like for the head support, because it will hurt. It hurts the neck just to put any weight on it because of the head. So just holding the head up like this when the inflammation gets bad is difficult to do for a long time. God, how I've lived with it really so long, and I don't know what to do about it really. I'm scared with it really because I don't know if it will progress or if I will just carry on malingering with it. I think either I will just continue living with it, but I'm existing really rather I'm not living fully with it at all, because I'm living in pain with it all the time. It's always in my neck and in my head, but it's sometimes worse when the inflammation happens. And it feels like there's something in there, like growing and moving sometimes. Well, there is something in there, but it's pushing out this mucus that it excretes in there. Uh, that's what's causes the inflammation, the problem, because there's too much of the mucus in there. And I've reached an end with it really, because they've done all the tests they can to look for it. They've sent off blood tests and mucus tests to the lab. They've all come back negative, and no one seems to know what it can be really. I don't know either really. I didn't know when I first got it. I just thought it was just another kind of infection, just an ordinary viral or bacterial infection. I didn't think, except for the neck being bad, I knew it was a bit strange because of that, I suppose. But I'd never imagined it would last like all these years with it. It would become a chronic infection. So I felt such a pressure of it on my lungs. You could feel something like kind of pushing a pressure against the actual organ, like inside it, like something grabbing and holding onto it. And I get that all the time. And it's worse when I go out, when I'm trying to do exercise or walking or anything with it. That's become impossible to do that, as a regular thing anyway over the last year. I do go out occasionally, but much less often than I used to. Oh God, I just felt something, this awful bulge and pressure in different parts of the body, and it all just feels terrible. Really, there's no other word to describe it. When people say how you feel, awful, or terrible. It's just too much pain. Really, it's possible to do some things with it some of the time when the inflammation isn't so bad. and I do manage to do some things. But as it's gotten worse during the inflammation and always malfunction, has struggled more. But as it's spread and got worse over the last year, it's harder to then do even the few things that I used to. There's no diagnosis and there's no treatment that's known or offered. So it's probably just a lifelong condition that I'm with now. I hope that it will get better and somehow clear up. I doubt that, just because after having had it for 3 years now, if it was going to get better, it would have done. How is it going to kind of clear up on its own without? And it has progressed when it became pleuritic a year ago. I never had any of the lower body awful weird pains inside. I never had any of that, and so I worry about it progressing, but I worry too about how am I going to live with it. That's what happens sometimes. I feel like some pressure building up, pushing. My whole body will sometimes convulse. Happens sometimes if I'm doing an exercise or short of breath as well, but God, I don't know how I'm surviving with it, really. I am doing that, just surviving with it, really. Jamming it is the phrase, isn't it? Just about making it, but I'm not thriving in any way close to it. It's like do you know how I describe it? It's like living with a monster. It's like living with a squatter or something that every day, continuously, unrelentingly, will just muck up your body and just produces more of this inflammation, more of the mucus, more of the pains. And you spend a lot of time just dealing with that, trying to clean it up, trying to get more mucus out, just trying to cope with the pain of it, only for it to then recede and then happen all over again every day. And it's unrelenting and it never ends. And my body used to be a service to other people. It used to be a blessing. It used to be a great thing. It was my house. It's my home to live in. It's occupied. It's now got this virus got in it, or bacteria, or it's now occupied or possessed by this infection. It's not mine. It's not society's. It doesn't work for society. It doesn't work for family. It doesn't work for friends. It doesn't work for me. What used to be of a little service to some people sometimes is of no value or service to anyone anymore. That saddens me a bit. But I think all I can do is cope with it as much as I can, really. I don't know what I'm going to do, really. But, just keep going with it. I just have gone like that for so long, just keep going without knowing how I'll live with it, or there's no kind of light at the end of the tunnel. There's no potential treatment that's going to turn up out the blue that will suddenly treat the infection, or the body is not going to be able to treat the infection if it hasn't done after so long. There's a chance. It's not completely unlikely. It's not completely out of this world. It's not, but it doesn't seem that likely. It doesn't seem that reasonable. There doesn't seem any realistic evidence that it can get any better now. So I don't know what to do about it. I just wonder what's the point of carrying on living sometimes. I've thought that for the last 4 months, really. And I just don't know the answer to it, actually. The point of living is to work for each other, is to love each other, know each other, care for each other. It's not to argue with each other, but it is to sort of love each other, isn't it? To care for each other. And if you're not capable of caring for yourself well, how can you care for others? If you're not capable of working, I can't even work for myself. If I can't work for others and that, I don't know how or what I'm carrying on for, really. It made sense for a couple of years working with it, when I was able to go out, when I could still work part-time, when I still had relationships, I still had romances, I still had family that I visited, I still went to vigils, protests, parties. I still had a life and was quite active for a couple of years with it. So the infection, whatever it is, it didn't stop me living. I carried on, I pushed on and tried. So people that say keep going and that, I kept going and I kept going. And I did that, and I lived for 2 years with this chronic infection, in pain all of the time. I partied in pain, I protested in pain, I worked in pain, I lived in pain, I danced in pain, I loved in pain, I made love in pain sometimes. Whether that's right or wrong, I did what I thought was right. I get drunk in pain. Sometimes maybe I did wrong things. I cycled in pain. I did it all in pain. And I'm proud of everything, all the good things I did in it, not the arguments. I did some crazy things on it as well. Getting angry and that at people, having arguments that were unnecessary when I'm in a lot of pain anyway, just because I feel provoked or feel they didn't understand or they didn't know often that I was in any pain at all. Some people, you couldn't often tell. You couldn't tell from looking at me now, for example. You wouldn't know that my neck's hurting or that I'm getting pains at the back of my head. It's possible to not see or not notice the pain if you have just a short casual chat with someone. It's possible to talk for a while when I'm weller and it not to be that obvious or apparent as well, actually. So often people wouldn't always know that I was in any pain during all that for those few years. And some people did, some people didn't really. Sometimes it was obvious when I broke down in tears or when I was coughing, sneezing, hocking or phlegming and sometimes a few times gasping, struggling to breathe, a few times when I broke down in tears. But you know what? Most people never saw me in tears with the pain. Even for those couple of years, I mostly just went to a toilet or just discreetly went away, mopped myself up after 15 minutes, tidied my nose up and my eyes. And I didn't really want to sort of make a public spectacle of it or anything really. But and even now, I just cry alone with it, and that's okay. Sometimes I've got to have a cry with it. Sometimes it's the pain that drives me to tears. Sometimes it's also an emotional pain as well, but it is a physical pain that drives me to tears often. It's just that the amount of times that I've been driven to tears the last year is incredible, really. I never known anything like it. It's a weekly thing. It will happen a couple of times every week and has done for the last 6 or 7 months, I would say. And I've never lived like that before in my life. Even in the first couple of years with the disease, sometimes I would cry about it sometimes, but not as a regular thing, certainly not as a weekly, a daily thing. And it's reducing me to tears that often with it, really. I numb myself nearly all the time, as much as I can with it. And I am numbed up now. I'm on codeine phosphate. I'm quite high on cannabis. I always am. I take the cannabis because it distracts me from the pain so that I'm not just experiencing that alone all of the time. It isn't just actually the pain only. It's not that the pain is excruciating either. Sometimes the pain gets bad when it's around the head and the neck. It's that the pain is in multiple places in the body, around the pleura area, deep under and around the stomach area, where it bulges and it feels awful in there. It feels like there's something actually moving and pushing and pressurizing it in there. And in the lungs, there's a huge strain on that as well. And then the neck and the head, there's my nose is itchy. Sorry. The pains are really hard to live with, really, all the time. But it isn't actually just that the pain. It's not the number of different places, because the pain's not excruciating. It's not that bad, or else I wouldn't be able to sort of carry on. It's the fact that it's so continual. It's the fact that the inflammation, where the neck and head pains get worse for a few hours each day, and it's the fact that it's in multiple places in the body. So it's in the neck, the head, and also around the lungs and the pleura area. It's the fact that it's continual in multiple places, and more than that as well, that I get this nausea from it as well. I feel quite lethargic and quite sick actually with it. I feel like quite faint and dizzy, quite like I want to be sick, but I can't be. And I feel like this whole swelling around my head. It feels like there's whatever's in there moving, that it is putting this pressure and it is releasing something that makes me feel nauseous. It's like you want to be sick, but you can't be somehow. Oh, sorry. When I get the inflammation episodes, and those occur every day with this, then my whole nose will get bunged up, and my eyes will pour. I pour tears out of it. My nose is blocked up, and I'm bringing up all this sort of phlegm. But my whole neck seizes up with pain, and the whole of the head hurts. During those few hours, I just restrict myself, lie down in bed, and I just kind of try and find more comfortable postures to get into. I'm not taking enough deep breaths. Talking is too much for me. I really don't know what can be found. The doctors did do as many tests as they could. They looked into other suspected infections, but have not yet found anything. And as far as I know from the most recent conversation, they've